Man, we're excited. We got Mike back in the building. Mike, how you been?
I'm doing good. I don't know that I'm actually literally back in the building, but it's good to be with you guys. Back in the show, right? Back in the show, which is
Yeah,
as good a place as there can be.
yeah. I was so excited when I heard you were going to be a guest again, given that you were in a campaign trail running for president, and so I'm like really looking forward to hear what that's about, how that turned out, and that's we're really excited to have you for that. And we have Seth back after months. How you doing, Seth?
I wasn't the only one that took an absence. We'll say, yeah, we've both been very busy. It's glad to be back. I've been doing a lot of stuff that you'll be hearing about pretty soon. But I'm glad we can have this conversation. I feel like we're gonna have a good one tonight.
Yeah. How's SoCal life doing? Because I know you just moved from Northern Cal to South.
Yes, I did
Yeah.
just move to Los Angeles area, and
Yeah.
finally settling in. Things are getting comfortable, so nothing to stress
Yeah.
over anymore.
You already got the LA look, man. You have the LA
Uh,
look down.
my sister bought me this shirt, so
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so like I said, guys, we have a great show for you today. Mike's back, um, and so Mike, we're just gonna kick off straight. So let us know how was the campaigning for president?
Well, do you mean before the convention or after the convention?
mm,
Maybe you mean after the convention when I was the vice presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party, or maybe you
Yeah.
mean seeking the presidential nomination before the convention. Uh,
Both. I mean, both takes
yeah,
a lot of courage, a lot of fundraising, a lot of support, a lot of talking.
well, a lot of
Well,
work. Let's
yeah.
leave it at a lot of work. Like I suppose most projects turn into if you really care about them a great deal. I worked very hard, and I don't know whether my experience was the same as anyone else's might be. I don't know whether the lessons that I learned are the same lessons that anyone else would learn,
Mhm.
but I did learn that hard work pays off, but it takes a lot more than hard work. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
yeah,
Success in politics means a whole lot of planets and stars aligning, because the object of the game is to represent the interests of other people.
Yeah.
And I think where a lot of politicians go wrong is that they confuse politics for leadership. Being
Mm.
a politician is not about being a leader. It's not about changing people's minds. It's about representing how you feel as honestly and with as much integrity as humanly possible, as clearly and as forcefully as possible, so that people who agree with your philosophy, your positions, agree with your intentions, can find you and rally around those ideas. That's your job. Your job is not to
hmm
change people's minds per se. Sometimes you have the opportunity to do so, and to the extent to which those opportunities present themselves,
yeah,
that's terrific, right?
Yeah.
But that's more a matter of battling the philosophical battle rather than
yeah,
politics, right? What we're doing tonight is spreading the message, maybe changing some minds, but politics is different. Politics is about representing something and letting people find you and
yeah,
rally around it. And to be successful, therefore, it means finding ways to project your voice. And
Hmm.
so that takes a lot of money, a lot of interest on behalf of the media. It takes a lot of things to align. It takes the interest of your own party and a significant team. It takes a good running mate, in
Hmm.
my case. So a lot has to come together.
That's awesome. So you're saying that obviously that's the part of the process to becoming a presidential nominee. I think in any party, is
hmm
those tools. So tell us, you got to the convention floor. You worked up this the best campaign you possibly can for the presidency. What happened? Why'd you choose to decide to Well, I mean, obviously you choose to decide to be vice president because you want to serve, but why? What
Oh, I
happened?
didn't get
Right?
as many votes as a couple of the other guys did, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
let's start there. I didn't get as many votes as Chase did and as Michael Rechtenwald did. They
Hmm.
got more votes than I did. Good for them, by the way.
Yeah.
I did not choose to be vice president at that point. I asked them to form a ticket without me
Wow.
and cut me out of it. But my suggestion was declined. The Mises people were not interested in that,
Mhm.
and each side suggested that I form a ticket with one of them, and for a lot of complex reasons that came up over the last few days leading up to that point, I chose to work with Chase Oliver's team, and that turned out to be a good decision. That worked out
Mhm.
pretty well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, you
So,
really were kind of the unity ticket, huh? You're kind of in between both camps, so I
Well,
feel
we
like that makes
tried.
sense. By
I made the argument that it would have been fairly unifying if Michael Rechtenwald and Chase Oliver had formed a team without me. I thought that
yeah,
that would have been in the interest in the party, that it would have formed a unification that I thought would have been a really good idea. I thought, I still think that would have been a good idea. If,
yeah.
if, it,
yeah.
if it were up to me, I would have cut me out.
No,
um,
you're pretty charismatic. I don't think they would have did that.
I don't know if I go quite
Yeah.
that far, but
Yeah.
I was a lot of folks' second choice, and
Yeah.
some folks, I suppose, I was their third choice or fourth choice. But anyway, um, forming a ticket with Chase, yeah, we come from slightly different directions. We spent a lot of time immediately talking about how we felt about certain positions and policies, and found that we really didn't have much to disagree about. So I'm not sure how much unification there really was. I think that
Yeah.
there was a perception that we needed some unification more than we actually needed some
Yeah.
unification. Um,
There
and
definitely is.
and there's probably some value in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say there definitely was visibly a major rift in the Libertarian Party. Even without having like great insight from the outside, it definitely came across like the Mises Caucus specifically was very ride or die for their own people, and they don't seem as willing to compromise as somebody like Chase, which I've always respected Chase. I've been a big fan of his. I didn't vote for him, but he would have been my second choice over Jill Stein, who technically would be more in line with my views. I just find her reprehensible. So I was, I respect integrity more than policies a lot of times because
Sure,
anybody
sure.
can claim to stand for a policy, but they don't necessarily live it.
Well, that's it is an interesting observation. I would agree with you about certainly about the perceptions of a rift. I'm not
Yeah.
sure that everyone who is dedicated to perceiving and in many cases fostering the rift would do as good a job as they think they would in terms of
Yeah.
identifying actual policies that separate various camps in the Libertarian Party, but the perception
Yeah.
persists.
Well, I feel like the main perception. I agree. I feel like on policy wise, you'll find 2 to 3% disagreement. Like everybody pretty much agrees in the Libertarian Party. It's one of the most unified, principally unified parties. But I
Yeah,
think that the main difference is your side wanted to win or grow the party versus them, which is they're so virtue signally. You know what I mean? They're just not even like they just want to be perceived as 100% correct, and they're so willing to cut ties with anybody they disagree with, which is so leftist. That's like everything that I'm experiencing now too. So it's just like, can anybody find common ground on anything and like grow together, or do you have to cut yourself from the branch from this wrong side that you're sitting on? I feel
yeah.
like so many
Well,
people.
I share your criticism. I'm not sure I would characterize it necessarily as leftist.
Oh,
You
I'm
and I
just
both
saying.
know a lot of leftists who fall into that category, though. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of overlap there. No question about it. And I think that it's fair to say that the Libertarian Party will get beyond this We'll get
Yeah.
beyond the silliness. At least I certainly hope so. I think it will, and I hope that it will. Over the next couple of years, I think the Libertarian Party will get back on its feet. I think it'll become as healthy as it was a few years ago. It'll figure out how to raise money again. It's been a while since it's been able to raise more than $1.50,
Yeah.
and I think it'll figure out how to support good candidates and achieve ballot access and get a lot of the blocking and tackling done that it has not been very good at the last couple of years. I think it'll
Yeah.
get back on its feet. My
I mean,
concern
2016 was full ballot access, right? Or is that 2020?
at 2020.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you
I
guys are.
remember Gary
It's not
Johnson. That
that's
was a
not a
big
long
thing.
time ago.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
in fairness, it wasn't the Libertarian Party's fault as much as it was the Democrats' fault in Illinois and New York that
Yeah. I know
changed
what
the
you mean.
rules and set the bar so high, and did so in reaction to the success of the Libertarian Party, by the way. So
Yeah.
that's a bit of a weird thing. My my longer term concern for the Libertarian Party is that I don't see a lot of reason to believe that these cycles of people coming in from the outside and the party splitting and everyone
Yeah.
gets mad at each other and there's a food fight and the party has a hard time reconciling and raising money and uh, there's all kinds of shenanigans going on in various states, and then you get over that, it gets back on its feet for a few years.
Yeah.
That cycle, I think, is something that is likely to persist in the future.
Yeah.
So even though I think the Libertarian Party is likely to get back on its feet, I don't see a whole lot of reason to believe that that cycle is not going to repeat itself over and over and over again, as
Yeah.
it has several times in the past. And I think the reason for that is fairly structural and therefore long term, which is to say, you're the third party in a two-party system.
Yeah.
If you're the third party in a two-party system, you are by definition outside of the system.
Yeah.
And so
I
that
agree.
means,
Yeah.
right, that's just semantics. That's just by definition. So that means necessarily that you're going to attract a lot of people who are not interested in the system,
Mm-hmm.
who are interested in other things.
Yeah.
You
More
know,
interested in being the third party.
yeah, they're going to be you're going to attract a lot of people who are interested either in themselves or interested in debate, as
Yeah.
opposed to using the political process to achieve political goals, policy-oriented goals. You're just going to get a lot of people that have different motivations than inside the Republican Party, the Democratic Party. I'm not suggesting one is good or one is bad.
Mhm.
I'm just
Yeah.
suggesting that if you've got people in a political party that aren't interested in politics, that your success is not going to be political,
Yeah.
whatever success that might be.
Well, here's the thing, Mike. I had a question about that because I ran a couple years ago for Congress, and I also ran for, I think, shortly thereafter it was
State
like
House.
State House. You
Yeah.
know, our real true race for me was running for Congress. The State House was something that we wanted to just try to make some kind of an impact. Um,
Yeah, we had like a month or two left, and they had gerrymandered our district, so it was kind of like a last-second Hail Mary since we had so much momentum, put so much time into it. So
Which
yeah,
district was this?
this was the
Florida
old
15th.
District 15, right? The old District 15 in Florida,
Yeah.
Florida 15. Um, yeah. So one of the things I found, and Seth will tell you this, he worked in the campaign. It was a lot of it was there was the people, and then there was the establishment,
Yeah.
right? And we felt momentum, we felt the strength that we were doing, that we had, and but the establishment never got on board with our campaign.
They pretended we didn't exist.
They
You
pretended
mean the
like we didn't.
establishment inside the Libertarian Party? Is that what you're referring
No, no,
to?
no. We ran a Democratic ticket, the Democratic ticket,
Yep.
Yeah.
and so for us, we saw that there was this divide between what people really wanted and what the party wants. Do you
Yeah.
feel like the Libertarian deals with that a lot too?
Uh, I I don't think the Libertarian Party has a lot of candidates that depend on a Libertarian Party establishment. You know, we
Yeah.
should be so lucky as to have a
Yeah, Justin
Libertarian Party
Amash.
establishment.
He's
Hmm.
the only the only elected official in the Libertarian Party, not anymore. But Justin Amash, it's the closest you have to an establishment politician.
In Congress in
Yeah,
Washington, that's right. There are folks that get elected to local races all the time, of
that's
course,
true. New Hampshire.
especially nonpartisan
Yeah.
races. But it's very difficult to find resources that are just sitting around established that somebody might
Yeah,
call an establishment in any of the states. Even states as successful as, say, the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania, that used to be and has been recently quite successful at running candidates for nonpartisan races. Even there, I don't think there are a lot of people who would say there's an establishment of
yeah,
resources waiting for a candidate. In other words, you've got to scrounge up everything on your own anyway. I
Yeah.
yeah,
I do understand that in a lot of places, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have this problem where the establishment makes decisions about the allocation of resources leading up to a
yeah,
primary. I take it you had a primary that was very difficult.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
And that's, that's a problem. That's a
yeah,
problem. It's a
Hmm.
problem as old as time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not asserting otherwise. I didn't mean
Hmm.
that you were. We all understand how this works. It is a
yeah,
disappointment. The primary process is damn near what you would call corrupt in that
Yeah.
sense. That's a heavy-handed term. I don't know that I want to call it
yeah,
corrupt because that implies something illegal is going on, and it's rarely something that can be prosecuted. I mean, every once in a while you got someone
yeah,
who's really a jerk, but for the
Yeah.
most part, the stuff we're talking about is fostering a familiarity among a club of
yeah.
Yeah.
established politicians that want one of their own, or
Hmm.
don't like
Is
outsiders, that sort of
you
thing.
don't have to say corrupt, but you could say like it's an impure process in the sense that
Yeah,
it's not like purely from the bottom up, decided by the people. There's a lot of party hierarchy, which is what we're
yeah,
talking about. Establishments. The terms are a little different because establishment could refer to like they're already the established politicians in
Yeah.
whatever. But the party hierarchy is something that applies both to
yeah,
Libertarian Party and the
yeah. That's
Democrats,
well
where
said.
at the
That's
top
right.
down you have to cater to the people running the direction of the platform.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
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 Yeah. It's just it's a the problem is to be that guy, to be the one around all the time, of the hanging out in the clubs, yeah, like all the Democratic clubs, the Republican clubs. You really can't have a regular life.
no, no, it's exhausting
yeah,
and consuming.
Yeah, you're literally there to appease people.
Yeah,
And
and
so yeah,
for
go ahead.
the sake of your audience, Jesse, you and I were talking about the weird culture that is Washington D.C. before we came into
Yeah.
this recording, and we both observed that Washington is obviously a one industry town where everything is about politics. That necessarily means that it's all about who you know,
Hmm.
and it's all about trying to get as big a share of a fixed pie. It's not about growth and adding value and creating things in an
Yeah.
entrepreneurial spirit in an economic sense. It's not about any of that,
Yeah.
and uh, that leads to you made a really interesting observation just before one of you guys hit the record button that I want to share with your audience. You said that it leads to a no trust culture, a no
Yeah.
trust environment, and that is exactly right. It's every man for himself in these party politic clubs,
Hmm.
yeah,
and it is really dehumanizing.
Yeah. It's to me, you know, I run my own business. I have my own law firm, and and I haven't told this to Seth, but I feel more impact on my day-to-day law firm than I felt when I ran,
yeah,
which is, it,
Absolutely.
and that shouldn't be the case. If you're running for office, you should feel like you're having an impact. But
Yeah.
it's more
Well,
like,
you should feel that way, but remember the other point that I have been making, which is politicians are not leaders.
yeah,
You're not actually creating value, you're just representing
Yeah.
a set of principles or policies or interests or action steps,
hmm,
methodology. You're representing something as clearly and forcefully as possible so that the people who agree with all of that can identify you as such and support you. It's
Yeah.
not really about creating things, adding value, changing people's lives. It's not doing what it is this podcast does, which
hmm.
is spread information, spread the
Yeah.
word, helping people understand things they wouldn't have understood otherwise.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so enlightening because that was one of the things I felt as just as a candidate running, and I didn't know if people is that why you think a lot of people are so disenfranchised with politics and a two-party system because they're like, you're not really helping me. You know,
Yeah.
Right.
you're coming every 4 years, you're saying this stuff, but the
Then they
machine.
help themselves.
Yeah, go ahead, son.
I
Right.
was saying then they help themselves. They don't help you, but
Yeah,
they're using you and your vote and your optimism to give themselves more power,
I
like
believe that that
more
is
career
typically
success.
I think that is typically the case,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it comes from this idea of attracting people to the political sphere
Yeah.
who don't come from a value creating environment. They come from a zero sum mindset. Good for you,
Yeah.
Jesse, for running your own business. A partner of mine and I, we ran our own business for 8 or 9 years a long time ago.
yeah,
And I agree with you. It is enormously rewarding, not
yeah,
only because you have some control, you know, you're the one making decisions every single day and you're flying many times by the seat of your pants and that can be thrilling, but
yeah,
also because you're totally divorced from anything that you might consider political, right? You're
yeah.
not you're not sucking up to a boss. You know, no amount of being nice to someone in the office is going to help your sorry ass, right?
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you you actually have to add value or you're
you're
not
fired.
eating.
Yeah, you're not eating. You're fired. That's really what it is,
Yeah.
and I think that that's what I'm starting to realize. It's like when I look at Trump every day, and I mean every day he's on the TV like
Every
every
day.
single day. He does these things. He says these things, but and people believe it, but he's not really adding value.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just still like, oh, he's doing a lot. What do you think is that disconnection? Why do people think that he's doing a lot when he's not really actually doing anything?
I think uh first of all, let me say up front, I'm not sure the answer, but I
Yeah,
got a couple of theories.
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm willing to share my theories.
yeah,
One is that um, there is a perception that he is adding some value because I think that some of his ideas do come from a place where he's trying to do so. In other words, there is a certain through line in the president that suggests that he sees the world as a messed up place and he believes that I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, huge benefit of the doubt here. This is on
yeah,
the positive side. We'll get to the negative in a minute, but
yeah,
I, there is a through line in his thinking that if I can just fix some of the stupidity, the world would be a better place.
yeah,
Yeah.
So I think that in many cases, he and the people around him really do believe, as dumb as I might think it is, really
Yeah.
do believe that tariffs will help make our economy work better.
mm,
And because there are certain instances in which certain tariffs, under the right circumstances, could achieve a particular strategic objective, there's enough
Yeah.
gray area that things, that gets murky.
Yeah.
I think that you could argue that the vast majority of Americans wanted there to be some control over the border,
Yeah.
and he identified that as a place where he could add some value by getting some control over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are just two little examples. Having said that, I think that the president often, and by the way, I lay a lot of the negativeness at the feet of the people with whom he surrounds himself. I think he gets the
Yeah.
worst staff work I have ever seen. I don't
Which you
know
could
that
blame
there is
him
a
for.
single person in that administration that I would hire. I don't know. I've never
Yeah.
seen Susan Wiles in action, so she may be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But that cabinet is full of dingleberries.
Yeah.
Absolutely silly sycophants.
Worse,
He's
worse than the
getting
worst
horrible
first time.
advice and horrible execution over and over and over again. This team has snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Policies that couldn't possibly fail. He has managed to find a way for them to fail. And I would identify the border issue and all these deportations as such an example. Every Republican,
Yeah.
that might be an exaggeration, almost every Republican
Yeah.
wanted control over the border, and the vast majority of Democrats wanted there to be some control over the border. Everybody wants to live in a nation of laws, and that necessarily implies a great deal of deportations, as there had been under the Obama administration and administrations before then. What could go wrong? Well, the administration found a way to piss off not just libertarians, right? Piss us off the most by, in so many cases, flaunting due process requirements, adjusting the semantics surrounding due
Yeah.
process requirements, and gaslighting us about what the results were. This idea of requiring only, instead of, the normal requirement. I'll get off of this particular example in a moment. It's a hobby horse of mine. But normally the requirement to arrest someone, right, is probable cause, meaning the law enforcement authority needs to believe that probably there was a crime committed and you committed it, right? Well, to detain someone during an investigation, the bar isn't quite that high, of course. It's specific and articulable, reasonable suspicion. Okay. In non-criminal cases, that is typically the requirement as well. Reasonable suspicion. You can detain someone for purposes of deporting them, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't mean, constitutionally speaking, that doesn't mean that you can go with reasonable suspicion alone in order to send someone to a prison in El Salvador,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? That's just not how this works.
Yeah.
But they just flaunt it. And then the next thing that they have done, and I don't put this at the feet of the president completely, but it's just bad staff work. The next thing they did was change what they consider to be the requirements for reasonable suspicion, all the way down to, they were in a time and place where a lot of other illegal aliens hang out. Well, that's not what the Supreme Court decided it was. That's not what any well-trained police officer in the United States understands it to be. That's just something that they invented, right? And that's not how this is supposed to work. Now, on the one hand, you might say, it's probably okay for the chief executive to say something like, I was elected to get control of the border. You people go down there and get control over the border. I was elected to implement law and order. You people start implementing deportations. And by the way, I want big numbers to show that I'm really badass and kicking names,
Yeah.
get out there and get me some big numbers. It's probably okay for a chief executive to talk like that. It's
Yeah.
not okay for people who should know better to disregard the requirements for probable
Yeah.
cause and for reasonable suspicion.
Yeah.
There's got to be someone who is adult enough and adherent sufficiently to the Constitution to say, boss, we get the objectives, but it has to be kosher with the Constitution. And the reason
Yeah.
for that is twofold. One, because this is the United States of America. Number two, as if number one weren't enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Number two, it's going to, in the long run, undermine your own objectives.
Exactly.
The American people will hang with us if we don't screw this up, because it's the most popular policy in the history of presidential elections.
Yeah.
There's almost no way for this to go wrong. I can't
Yeah.
believe he overplayed such a strong hand. And there was no one there to save him from such stupidity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point, especially because you were talking earlier about Trump. On his own, he makes his own mistakes or whatever, but it's fundamentally on the people he hires and all the people advising him that are leading to this. But the biggest problem is the difference between this administration and his previous administration is he got rid of all those people intentionally. Anybody that is not a yes man, does not kiss his ass every step of the way, they're out. So who is that? It's inherently intentional for him to replace. There's nobody to advise him. Nobody is going to even mention that there could be some externalities potential, which is, again, if somebody had his best interests in mind, there's certain things that they would do, certain ways that they would massage messages and, ways he's communicating to make it seem, like they aren't objectively define the Constitution and intentionally just the amount of times that he's like so openly said he does not care about the Constitution or the way of law or like
Every week.
basic human decency.
Every
Go
week.
ahead. Yeah, every week. But nobody seems to care.
This week, it's maybe we're going to do the same thing as we're doing in Washington. Maybe, we're going to do the same thing in Los Angeles or Chicago or
Yeah.
New York. Is there no one there to say, we're going to have to find different language, because when you run all that together in the same paragraph,
Yeah.
it makes it look like you don't care about the constitutional differences between a state and a non-state, between federal control over the District of Columbia and asserting federal authority in Illinois, right?
Yeah.
And when you make it look like you don't care, you make yourself look like you're flaunting the Constitution, and not to put too fine a point on it, that ain't American. And that's not
Yeah.
where we want to be in terms of communication as an administration.
Yeah, he's just gotten away with so much for so long, things that no other president, no other human would be able to get past the critical lens of both sides. Like, people have very principled objections to things he's doing from both conservative and liberal
Yep.
perspectives. But if
I
you
don't
are
think
in the
anyone else would
Republican Party,
try.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
just,
I mean, imagine the three of us, right? Imagine the three
Yeah.
of us are working for an administration, and someone comes and says, which is true, crime is out of control in a handful of
Yeah.
cities. A whole bunch of, pick Chicago, okay? I grew up outside of Chicago. I'll pick on Chicago for a minute. Someone comes to us, the three of us are having lunch together, and says, what are you three idiots going to figure out what to do about this? I don't think the three of us are going to come up with, let's federalize the police department in Chicago.
yeah,
I just don't. I'm not
Yeah.
writing that down on a piece of paper as one of our 7 options.
No. I don't think anyone should. I mean, at the idea that he was able to float that and no one in Congress said anything.
yeah. Do you hear about the things he's talking about with, like, man, there's the DC cleanup, all that stuff. The crime rate is consistently going down. And then what was it? Big Balls, that one dude that was in the Doge department. I mean, it's very widely speculated that it was a framed attack on him because he was saying he got attacked by a bunch of people and they were like, "This is Kamala country," which no liberal has ever talked like that ever. And
What
he
you're
got
saying? We have a Jesse Smollett problem?
no, no. That's a different thing, but it's similar to that.
No, but what you're describing is the mirror
Yeah.
image.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. And we all knew that was a hoax from the start. So it's like, you really expect us to believe that? And then he
Did
takes
you
the
know that it
National
was a
Guard.
hoax? I
Oh, of
went a good
course.
48 hours not knowing it. I'm always the slowest one.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a host
Okay.
either.
No, not at first.
Yeah,
No.
I guess that's so long ago that I
Steph is
don't
the
remember my
smart
initial
one. Steph
impression.
figured it out faster than we did.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is, it's just, I feel like there's no check and balances like there used to be.
Exactly. That's
It's
where I was leading.
So I think for me, it just seems like, and if we keep this up within the next year or two, you might just call us a dictatorship.
It's not
Because
far.
because if he's able to run the way he's doing with no checks and balances, I mean, he literally done everything. Has been rubber stamped essentially. Even the Supreme Court, they're finding ways around some of the things that he's doing because they don't want to say, Mr. President, that's unconstitutional. So they're finding ways around it by saying, yeah, we're not going to take that issue. We'll talk about this issue, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just almost like everyone's greenlighting him to do whatever he wants. And I think there's two things that can come from it. Either everyone that's smarter than me probably in Washington figures like, hey, the American people voted for him. Let him do what he wants to do. And when he messes it up, then we have their votes
Yeah.
forever. That's pretty Machiavellian. I'm not saying that that could happen, but I think that's some people's play in Washington is to just let him run the muck, let him break the
Yeah.
system, or
Well, there is that
I don't know.
attitude. The problem with the attitude, of course, is that, what do you do about the next schmuck who thinks
Yeah.
Yeah,
that,
all right.
she or he has the right to claim as much authority? I think
Yeah.
it's a real problem. I
Yeah.
think that the courts are eventually going to, well, the courts have already put up some roadblocks. I think that the courts will continue to do so in very important ways. I also think he is going to bump into some political pushback eventually
Yeah.
in
After the midterms.
in certain areas, possibly after the midterms. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, especially if it flips Democrat.
Yeah.
I don't know that it will. It's
Hard to
there,
tell right now.
there's
Well,
nothing good for America about having a Democratic Party with its head so firmly up its own ass. I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
I mean, those people have been such a disappointment, and I'm rooting
I
for
agree.
them to eventually develop a libertarian wing, but I'm afraid it's
Yeah.
going to take
That's
several
what we're about.
thousand years.
well, the problem with the Democratic Party is there's too many factions. It's like
Yeah.
you need to pick a lane, and that's your lane, and that's the problem with
Yeah.
the Democratic Party. They're just trying to appease too many people,
It
and it's
is a problem, Jesse. You know what I think is the problem with that is that I think the philosophy that holds the whole thing together is a real fundamental anti-libertarian concept that the way you get ahead in life is to take something from someone else. It goes back to this constant sum mindset,
yeah,
not adding value, but what's in it for our group or this group, what's in it for my constituents, what's in it for women, what's in it for men, what's in it for this racial group, what's in it for that racial group, what's in it for, this politically identifiable subsection versus the other one. That seems to be the
I do.
philosophy that holds the whole thing together rather than a more modern philosophy, just
yeah,
not to put too fine a point on it, but
Yeah.
since the Enlightenment, since the 18th century, we've had a growing understanding that the way economics really works is everyone's trying to add value,
yeah.
and that's how the economy grows. which seems to be something that the Democratic Party is just, with which they're completely out of touch.
I think we're talking about two different people because when you say the Democratic Party, I'm hearing the voters, and I feel like they're a lot more. Some of them are less educated, but I feel like a lot more of them are more understanding of how things affect them versus the establishment, the party leadership, the people that are completely controlled by the special interests, by the lobbyists, by the
Right. And that's
way
why
the
they're so
economy is run.
unpopular.
I agree. I 100%
Yep.
agree. I think
That
leadership, if they got
mismatch.
replaced,
Yep.
if they got replaced, there'd be such a void of popularity that Democrats could be unstoppable if they just replaced all the dumbasses at the top who are telling them the wrong things to do every step of the
And
way.
this
And I
goes to
don't.
my
That's,
earlier
yeah,
point. Politicians are not leaders, meaning
I
they
agree.
have to represent a set of ideas. You can't just take a politician who believes in A, B, and C
Yeah,
and say, okay, now he believes in X, Y, and Z, so you should vote for him. That's not how this works. You've got
Yeah.
to get rid of them. You can't say
yeah.
all of a sudden, right, Nancy Pelosi is all about free markets, let's vote for Nancy. That's not the way this works.
Yeah.
And so it takes
Yeah.
time to replace these people, and that's what
And
has
I
to be
think the
done with the
hardest
Democratic
part,
Party.
the hardest part of what you're saying, which makes sense, is in order to change, you can't influence the power. The power has to be replaced.
Yep.
You have to become the power, and to become the power to an extent, you have to suck up to the power, just enough that you can get in contention with them. For example,
Or
like
overthrow the establishment, to
yeah, yeah,
Jesse's
yeah,
point.
for
Yeah.
sure. And I think part of the problem is like we were talking about politicians. They're all, they're in for self-interest. I do think most politicians do have that perspective, but I do think they genuinely do think they can go in there and change, and they'll be the ones to do things. And I think that
I don't
they
know.
go into the system. I think they go into the system wanting to change things, and they leave the system more changed by the system than
I don't know.
than
I think
any
Jesse's
impact they
about to
made.
punch you in the nose. Go ahead,
I
Sure,
Jesse.
don't
sure.
know. I honestly think that they don't think they're going to change anything. I think they
I think
know.
they're egocentric enough to think that they're the one that can change things. You know what I mean? And I
I was,
think that they end up like letting the system bring them down, and then they just sort of go along with everything their party asks of them. That's why I feel like first and second year congressmen are much more like activist oriented, and then they could just kind of like become toe the party line from here on out. Go ahead with your point.
no, so but I've talked to someone who was running with me, and I won't put his name out there because what he told
Sure.
me. But a lot of them, a lot of them already know, especially the first and second year, they're one going in there just to get reelected again.
Yeah,
most,
100%.
most politicians, and the second, all of them already know that they're only there to fundraise for the
Yeah.
party. So they're not really there to really represent. It's to fundraise and cast this vote on this issue. So a
I
lot
think
of
that's the main difference between the establishment picks versus the pop, like grassroots activist people running. And I feel like that's where we found so much problems is we were actually trying to win and like change things and talk to people on the ground versus Adam Hattersley, our opponent, who was endorsed by every Democrat in Florida. He was already kind of like anointed so that he already knew the deal. He already admitted that he'd spend 10 hours a day talking to donors.
yeah, yeah.
That's all you need to know.
And with that, and I got him what 2,000 extra votes.
Yeah, he'd still lost.
Yeah, we ran neck and neck with them. So I mean, there's at some point raising money doesn't really do anything,
Yeah.
but you do have to connect with people. But my I guess my position is you do all this time trying to connect and you get these people involved and you get
Yeah.
their hearts inspired to for change and for growth to get there and to be like you're just a number. You're gonna do this vote, even if it hurts your district, you're still gonna vote this
Yeah.
way. And we'll give you X amount of dollars so you can outspend the next guy. And then you'll be
Yeah.
here for 20 years and maybe possibly you may get one bill that you want.
And I do think it's more indirect than that because I don't think that they or it's not like they say like don't read the bill. It's the bills are so massive intentionally that they can't read it. So you just sort of have to trust that people on your side are looking out for the same interests as you are. So that's why it just gets too easy for them to not use their own brain and use their own sense of discernment. These
Hmm.
massive omnibus bill packages are 10,000 pages on purpose. That's where all the meat is. All the things that are messing up our entire economy and our society are, between the lines. Read
So where
between
are
the
you
lines. It's
guys
like
on the president? Is he a guy who is in it only for himself, or is he a guy who
pretty
thinks he can
much
make America great again?
I think
90-10.
I
Which
think he's
way?
a hunt for
Come
himself.
on.
For himself.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was the whole intention.
he's made so much money from
I
being
thought Seth was making the argument that a lot of politicians want
A
to make
lot.
America great.
Trump's not a politician.
So
Trump is a
you
businessman.
okay? Let me throw out a counter example.
Sure.
By the way, I'm not sure you're wrong, but let me throw
Yeah.
out a counter example that's a little bit silly, but you'll get my point. Did you see the the press conference? Was it yesterday or today? I can't keep track of the hours from the Kennedy Center when he was announcing the 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 award winners.
I heard vaguely. I don't know too much.
I didn't
Now,
watch it.
this is what he said, right? He announces the five folks. They're all either agnostic or
Yeah.
Republicans. The band Kiss, which is before your time, um, had a couple of guys, we weren't really sure where they were politically, and one of them
Hmm.
was a Republican. So, these people are okay by Trump. A reporter asks him, to what extent were you personally involved in these picks? He says 98% I was involved. Now, nobody really knows what that means, not only
Yeah,
because you don't know what the number means, but you don't even know what the word involved means.
I agree.
This is what he says. He explains it for us. And CNN was asleep at the switch. They did not pick up on this. He says that he personally crossed people off the list because they were too woke. Okay.
That's
Now,
so subjective.
yeah, of course it is. So subject. But it's
Yeah.
also, I mean, you would have hoped that politics was being left out of this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's admitting it's political. He's admitting that he's doing the picks himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Neither one of which should be happening, both of which are bad.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's my question. Does a guy who's only in it for himself do something that dumb?
Yes.
Because it seems to me that what he revealed is he really does think that he can make America better by crossing people off the list.
Here's where I disagree.
I see
I'm
the
not
logic.
arguing he's
Yeah.
smart. I'm
Yeah.
arguing he thinks
Yeah.
this isn't all about me. It's just that I'm the only smart guy in Washington.
Here's the thing. It is about him because I don't think he sees woke the same way other Republicans do or whatever. Or most people use it as anything I don't agree with, any virtue signaling, anytime anybody's talking about their own values or something like that. I think he sees it as just, I'm marking off my critics. These people are likely to speak out against me. These people are likely to disagree with me. I don't
In other
see
words,
it
by
as
woke, he means anti-Trump.
yes, exactly. That's how I see it. I see everything.
You could be
Everything is
right.
anti-Trump. Yeah,
You could
I
be
don't.
right.
I don't think he cares too much about social values and the culture war. I think he uses that, and I do think maybe he's more involved than he was in 2016, 2020. I do think over time, eventually, you start to get you're a president for 12 or 8 years or whatever. Yeah, you're going to be political, obviously, but his whole intention was always he's a performer. That's his best audience. He can talk. He didn't expect to win. He expected to use it to promote his name and promote his brand and stuff like that. And when he actually won, I think he was a little shocked. And, then his ego is involved. Now I'm president. Now I want to be the best president there ever was. And I want people to love me and I want people to praise me. It's always a form of self-infatuation. It's always been a way to gain praise or gain some sort of approval that he didn't get when he was a child from his own father. And I think everything is downstream from that. Every single thing that's political is blinded by that fact, who rejected me, who accepted me, who's my in group, who loves me, who hates me. That's
I have
everything.
no evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you like completely broke him down there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, like I said, I think, and I think for a lot of MAGA people in MAGA, it's not that political either. I don't even think most people in Trump's the MAGA cult or whatever. I don't even think they care that much about the actual policies or anything. I think they like being a part of a group. That's what they see as being an American. That's what they see as America first. Is I used to during 9/11, we all felt unified. We all felt like we were one country and we had something to fight for together.
And now
And
there's a little
ever
bit
since
of
that,
a little piece of that, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
Yep.
that's what they want to make America great again. Is that sort of feeling? It's not. It's all about how they feel. It's nothing to do with the actual consequences or their material interests.
Yep.
It's purely about being a part of an in group,
Yep.
a powerful in group, the
In his case,
predominant in group.
the most powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just the way I see it. It's all personality cult, and there's some politics wrapped up in it, for sure, because politics, government, all this is just about power, and this is all about getting things that you want. You need power, because I
It's a
don't think that
constant
the
sum
United States.
culture.
I,
Go ahead.
I think we say that all the time. It's about power, but I don't think we
Yeah,
ever define what power is for
yeah.
the viewers. What is power?
I think power and freedom, I feel like, go hand in hand to an extent.
What
Like
is
You
power?
mean
your
they're
personal
opposites?
freedom. No, I think that, well, yes, in a way, but I think that your personal power is your freedom. You have the power, you have the lack of
Right. So when we
roadblocks. You're
talk about political power, we're
Yes.
talking about the opposite. It's power to compromise someone else's freedom. It's power to
That,
make decisions for someone else.
why I say so, why I say it's for your own personal whatever. I'm saying that there's nothing holding you back from anything that you want or you want to do towards others or anything. There's nothing above you. Power is being unobstructed. That's the same as freedom in a way. Freedom and power are both about being unobstructed by something with more power or with the ability to take your power or freedom away from you. So if you have nothing above you, I feel like that's the shared fundamental goals. Now I do think there's obvious differences because I don't think my side of people who view freedom is it a form of power above others or anything like that. Like I said, I do think it's a
No,
power
that's the
to.
difference between the word
Sure.
power and the word freedom. When we say
Yeah.
power, we mean an ability to affect someone else.
Yes, but like I said, is your freedom to, like I said, freedom in the sense that there's nothing holding you back, not necessarily the same like God-given freedom you're born with, like that sense of freedom. I'm talking about like uninhibited.
Yep.
There's nothing stopping you. There's no restrictions.
Well, what you mean is the
But
extent to which you
Go
have
ahead.
that latitude. It doesn't mean it's all or nothing. There are gradations of all of this.
Yeah, everything is. Go ahead, Jesse.
Who really has power? I mean, let's think about it for a second. The Congress, they don't have power. They essentially, you elect them, they have to do whatever the party says. If they veer away from the party, then they get booted out. There's no power there. When you look at the Senate, it's a
Not as
little bit,
individuals, but as a
Yeah,
team, they
as a
have
they have the
group, yes,
yes,
as a group
they
they
have the
have
keys to
power.
power, but they're not the driver.
They're not the driver of power.
Yeah,
So we're saying, well, they're getting elected for power. They're not really getting elected for power because they don't have it. Now, if their group
yeah,
is like, hey, you could win this seat because you have this demographic, because you have this background, and that will work, be the representative so we can have more people in our group, then the group has power. And isn't it incumbent on us to figure out what group is picking the people? Oh,
yes.
We
yeah,
we don't know. We just have a politician that comes in and smiles and says, "Hey, I've been here for 20 years, living in the community. I just want to get back to my country." And crack a smile, and they're like, "Vote for me," and that's
yeah,
what we're doing, right? So when I see that, when we're telling people, we're like, "Oh, they're just getting there for power," it's not really what they're getting there for. They're getting there to fulfill an agenda that a subset of group, Trump calls it the deep state, whatever,
yeah,
a subset of group wants to do. So if people want real change, I think we really need to focus on that. Let's start talking about, hey, what are these groups that are contributing to your state that you're in currently, right? Because it's not the politician. The politician has no power. It's the group that is paying for the politician. It's the
Yeah.
group that needs that politician in that seat so they can pass this particular agenda. And I feel
I
like,
think.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying. I feel like that goes along with like the establishment in a sense. I don't see that necessarily
It's
mean
not the
establishment
establishment.
politicians.
No,
Not
no,
the not establishment politicians. That's what I'm saying. Is the
right.
establishment of power itself. Those are already the rich, powerful people. The people that already have the influence, that already don't have to work for anything because they already have something established, pre-existing. So they're just there to protect their own status above you. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm. That's the real establishment is the donor class, the celebrities, and the very powerful owners of large corporations that are trying to use those corporations to manipulate the
But
market. So
it's
we
not
don't have
just
a free market
corporations too.
anymore.
It's not just
What was that?
corporations. Environmental
Yeah, no,
groups
of course
do
not.
the same thing.
I agree.
Non-for-profit groups do the same thing. They're all they all have,
Collective interest
yeah.
groups.
I know for a fact if you run in, I forget what district it is. If you run and you're a woman in that district, you will get majority of the support because they're funded by, I forgot the name of the women's group.
Emily's,
Say
whatever,
again?
Emily's
Yeah,
list.
Emily List. Emily List. Yeah, that's the group. So that is like that is literally the system.
I
The
agree.
Emily List wants someone in that seat that's a woman, and they will always give her money, no matter if she's a terrible candidate or not a terrible candidate. And that to me is the fundamental issue. Is like, why are we not having that conversation as Americans? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, what are these groups that are pulling America a certain direction? Not the individual, because the politician doesn't really have power. What is
I
the
agree.
group on? I was saying earlier, Trump has made the most money probably out of any president in a lifetime. And he's
Yeah.
like,
Far.
he tells people like, "Oh, I'm donating my $400,000 salary to, this charity because I'm just a great
Yeah.
guy, right?" But if you look underneath, he's made already in 6 months. He's made like $1.1 billion.
Yeah.
He's being in office.
He's more wealthy than when he came in.
Yeah, no one is talking about that.
Yeah.
His supporters are going to be like, "Well, he's just a smart man," and the Democrats are going to be like, "No, he's doing stock manipulation,"
Yeah.
which we all know he's doing. But
And
we're
then
not
like
really
the whole crypto coin scam. Do you remember that whole thing where
Yeah,
there was like
that's
a
where
Trump
most of his
coin?
money came from
Yeah.
was the meme that he was
Meme
selling.
coin,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
unicorn. Yeah,
No, it's insane that we would allow this
Yeah.
for a politician to behave this way,
yeah,
but we do because we didn't have a law sufficiently specific to
Yeah.
yeah.
knocking it down.
Yep.
It's very difficult. To Seth's point about integrity being the most important thing, it's very difficult to write a criminal code that is going to
Yeah.
be sufficiently specific that as technologies change, it's always going to be something you can use to prosecute new bad behavior. Very, very difficult. At the end of the day, you're relying on integrity.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the point. It's like I think we just everyone that's in the fight, we need to start talking about the groups of
Yeah.
power versus the individual politicians.
Yeah.
Because groups of power is what's willing this system. It's not, and we know who they are. It's not a deep state. It's like
Right,
Yeah.
and it
it's
does
like
come up from time to time. We know that there are certain donors and certain
Yeah.
groups of donors and characteristics of donors that matter a great deal. We know that certain corporations have enormous influence. I mean, the silliest easy example is the military-industrial complex that we've been talking about for 70
yep.
Yeah.
years. But there are plenty of others, whether it's big pharma, right,
Yeah.
or big tech. We're
Hmm.
aware of the influence that some of these groups have.
Do you think now Madani in New York is going to be like the first candidate that I guess the people are finally saying, "Hey, enough's enough." like we don't believe you anymore. We don't actually believe that you're going to fix our lives. We don't believe you're going to change. And so his candidacy is kind of and his his chance of winning is kind of indicative of people were just fed up.
I think so. I think that that's why President Trump was elected too.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
why
of course.
there's so much
Yeah.
statistical crossover between supporters of Bernie Sanders and supporters of Donald Trump.
Yeah,
And now there's going to be some
Yeah.
crossover between supporters of Donald Trump and Bandami. It's just a matter of being upset with the system. To a certain
I
extent, it's an analytic, rejection of the way the system works.
yeah.
But to your earlier point, it's also a matter of just how people feel. If you're
Yeah.
frustrated with your life and you have a tendency to blame it on the outside world,
yeah,
that's what leads people to vote against anything that smells like the establishment, no matter how good or bad it is.
Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna mention, yeah, 23% of conservatives in New York City are voting for Mamdani.
Yes,
23%, which
it's
that
not
sounds
big enough.
like the right percentage. Like some of them are gonna go for the Republican, and then some will go for, I don't know, they liked Eric Adams because he seemed chill or whatever. But
Eric
it
Adams,
makes sense. Like
Eric Adams should drop out that race. That he's kind of
Well,
stupid.
part of the
yeah,
problem is
he's
you got
only
a
in there
bunch
for
of other candidates who aren't very good.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So he's benefiting from that.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Or people not even knowing that he was indicted on corruption charges and stuff. Like the non-educated voters can be like, "Oh yeah, he's the mayor, right? Yeah, let's." I could definitely see a lot of people doing that, but
Right.
I mean,
And the deal that
statistically,
was
it's
cut
not
with the
enough.
administration,
What was that?
and the deal that was cut with the administration,
Yeah,
people, a lot of people don't pay attention to that level of detail. I
yeah.
understand that.
With mayoral politics, even if it's New York City, who's really dialed into that?
It's
Yeah,
hard. Hey, most people aren't dialed into who's the president of the United States going to be when, in October before a November election. Most people don't know
yeah.
what it is that they're voting for.
Yeah,
I do think we made some good points at the end that were like, I don't know, revelatory towards me because I do feel like I expected this whole conversation to be a lot more about what we disagree on, and I'm sure we could talk for an hour about economics or whatever, and I'm
yeah,
sure we could find every single point in which we disagree. But the thing that was underlying it all is like we have the exact same like I don't want to say enemy, but yeah, we the exact same enemy that we're critiquing the exact same powers and the exact same structures and the exact same people because we want a much more healthy, balanced system with integrity. And I feel like that's much more important to focus on right now. You know, when there is such a big opposition to freedom out there right now, I feel like we really should take everything we can and come together and find anything that we can agree on because at some point there's got to be some force that's going to put an end to this kind of nonsense, this idiocy that's running the government. And I mean, a full thwarted left and right anti-authoritarian movement, I think, is something that's more realistic than ever with how much they're pushing us. They're testing us. They're wanting to see how what is it going to take for us to react and come together and like actually oppose the Trump administration for the nonsense that they're doing. So I think this is a good time in society for that reason. I feel like it's kind of like the 60s. We're going to have like this massive movements of all these different ideologies and perspectives and people trying to push back because people are going to be
yeah.
more politically involved than decades because they're kind of forced to be. So I
You
think this
may
is
be
going to be a
right.
very
I
interesting
think that
time.
there's. Uh, Let me just speak to that really quickly.
Sure.
I think that this is a unique time. I think a lot of things are coming together at once. I think that for a couple of different reasons. One is that our government is presenting to our society what are, in my view, truly existential threats.
Yeah,
One is the financial crisis that the federal government is heading toward.
I
That
agree.
if there's not a very serious course correction, the federal government will be unable to meet its obligations in a decade.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, not because we love the federal government, but because of financial failure of the federal government of the United States would cast the
Yeah.
entire globe into a deep depression. And
Yeah.
a very deep depression that would be very difficult from which to recover. The, the other thing our government does that I believe presents a potentially societal existential threat is that we continue to engage in other people's wars.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that President Trump and his administration seem to want to avoid that. Very good
Except for
thing.
Iran.
I don't know, yeah, pre-Iran. I don't know that others that will follow him feel the same
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But it's not so much that everything that we do in foreign policy is so profoundly stupid. It is that
Yeah.
we do so many things that are stupid, because it's sort of a problem of the law of large numbers. You know, you can't
Yeah.
keep spinning the wheel as often as we do and expect that at no point is a bad situation going to come up from which it's
Yeah.
difficult to extract yourself.
Yeah.
And then the third threat that I see that is potentially existential for our society is the political polarization. And that is something that I thought was completely untrue as recently as 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I thought that people were exaggerating, and maybe in fairness to me at the time, people were exaggerating the extent to which we might be headed toward a, you know, people use the term civil war.
Yeah.
But now, when you've got the governor of New York saying that a redistricting in Texas, which, you know, personally I think is dopey, I don't like it,
Yeah.
but no matter how dopey Mike thinks it is something that happens all the time. I know it doesn't happen in the middle of the decade. I get that. It's different, blah, 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 blah. I know all the talking points. But when the governor of New York says, this is war, really?
Oh, are you talking about Newsom?
No. When Kathy Hochul says
Oh, I
this
didn't
is
hear about
war,
that.
Newsom also said it too, but yeah.
Newsom
Okay.
says, to hell with the rules, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If your leading governors say that the Constitution no longer matters, I know that that's not what they mean, but when they
Yeah.
say it, when they say the Constitution no longer matters because of something that's been done 25 times in the past,
Yeah.
your nation is in trouble. That's a problem, because you can imagine the rioting that took place in 2020, right? You know,
Yeah.
you've got COVID, and you've got bad police behavior, and you've got fears of racism, each one of which somebody might argue round or square, but you throw all that into the pot, right? And you get a lot of rioting that year. You could imagine a scenario in the future in which that's worse, and you can imagine in the future a federal government that reacts very badly to that.
Yeah.
And that's a downward spiral, right? When you're imposing martial law, you saw people in Los Angeles were upset just because we sent, 1,000 National Guardsmen and Marines. You know, in the grand scheme of things, not that big a deal. People were very upset. Understandably, I'm not suggesting they
Yeah.
shouldn't have been. But that was a relatively low scale, silly response from the White House. Imagine a large scale, silly response from the White House on
Yeah.
top of something that was really
That's what I'm
bad.
afraid of.
Yeah.
Yeah, these things matter. And I think the big thing that's going to matter in the future is not the Democratic Party. I think they have taken themselves out of intellectual debate for the next decade. Not the
I'd say at least
Libertarian
until they
Party.
get new leadership.
The issue is, how is the Republican Party going to replace Donald Trump? What is going to fill that vacuum? Is it going to be authoritarianism and nationalism and populism and all the bullshit?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it going to be free markets and adherence to the Constitution and fiscal conservatism and a rationalized foreign policy and medical freedom and, you know, a lot of stuff that we all want to see. We're on a knife's edge. And how that is decided is going to determine the course of the federal government over the next few years, several years. And a lot is riding on it in a much bigger way than in the past. You know how we always used to say, oh, it's the biggest election ever. The last few elections, there wasn't much on the line. I mean, you really didn't have many differences in terms of spending and war and all that among the Republicans and the Democrats. But how the Republican Party decides to fill the vacuum of Donald Trump leaving is going to determine how the federal government of the United States responds to these threats.
Yeah.
That's why I'm working inside the Republican Liberty Caucus, because I believe that that is the right brand to try to affect the direction the Republican Party goes in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I do hope for your sake that that is the case to take, but I don't see it likely as them going from the Tea Party movement to a populist movement back to the Tea Party movement. I feel like you mixed up the Democrats and Republicans, and which ones can be out of contention with changing their mind in the next 10 years. I feel like the Republicans are going to be trying to recreate Trump for the next few election cycles, just pretending like it wasn't a unique person that set that straight. They're going to try to make J.D. Vance the next guy, and then after that, they're going to try, I don't know, maybe they'll throw a Nikki Haley in there.
That is a possibility. That's
Yeah.
what makes this so important.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree
think
with
that's
you.
way
There
more
will
important.
be a whole lot of people that try to make that happen.
Yeah.
And if that does happen, those three threats that I specified
Yeah.
become very real problems.
Yeah. I just find it hard to believe that everything we've seen from Trump so far, and the amount of Republicans that have not changed their mind at all. I can't imagine that they would change it after, I don't know, after seeing everything and none of that affected their opinions. I can't imagine they're just going to completely change their values back to something more pure. But I really, really, really hope for the entire nation's sake that somebody steps in, has a completely ideologically altering message that changes the Republicans, because I don't benefit from having. Yeah.
I think there are a lot of Republicans who aren't in the Trump cult.
They're just not very vocal.
They're just not very vocal. I think that Rand Paul might run for president.
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know that he will, but if he does, he seems to have this affinity for flying to Iowa and New Hampshire. So,
Yeah.
you know, good for him. If he does, I think a lot of people would rally around that, and I think that could matter. I don't know that he's, I don't know that he's the next president of the United States, but if enough Republicans were to rally around that, I think that could matter. That could move the needle. That could create enough pressure on whoever does become the president of the United States.
Yeah.
That could matter. The other argument I would offer for y'all to think about is the as opposed to what, right? We're saying that it's an uphill climb to foster libertarianism inside the Republican Party. Yeah, that's an uphill climb. No kidding, right? No kidding. As opposed to what? What's the
Democratic Party. I know you. I know. But we're talking about leadership versus voters. Don't forget, the voters are much, much, much more libertarian than you seem to believe. Trust me, because I made the switch from libertarian.
I do believe you.
That's why I think there's a chance.
I firmly am convinced that the Democratic Party will develop a libertarian wing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think they should.
Absolutely. And I
Somebody
think
has to lead it.
The process of that will begin 10 years from now.
Wow.
I think the process is now. I think I've seen more.
That's the problem.
I think
and 10 years from now it's too late.
I think you're missing what's on the ground, though. And I think that's something that you should look into, because I feel it could make you a lot happier. Because I've seen the most libertarian movements being in the Democratic Party for the last 6 months than I've seen in a while. And like I said, I don't even know that it's predominant or if it's specifically
from
in
your
the
lips
circles
to God's ears. I hope so. So you should be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's what I am doing.
You should be launching a new caucus inside the Democratic Party and turning it into a political force. That's what I'm doing inside the Republican
Have
Party.
you
We
ever
should be
heard of
doing it inside the Democratic Party.
the Democratic Freedom Caucus?
Yes.
Like that Twitter account? I started that Twitter account like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Like I've been on this. I've been trying. We're doing what we can do. But
Good
like
for
I said,
you.
I think that I think well they also had bureaucratic.
Let me
They
know
already
what I
had a
could do
caucus and
to
stuff.
help you, but I do believe that you've got to build that into a political force,
Yeah,
not merely a voice.
I agree.
It has to spread its wings, give it a chance to develop some grassroots
Yeah.
geographically.
That's where we hit some setbacks. Is we were creating like a sort of movement online, and then the people that actually owned the technically the caucus, they had just been engaging in like email formats back and forth for like a decade. They didn't
You
want
got
to
to
change
find out
anything. Or,
how you got to
yeah,
find out how their charters can be created, how their state
yeah,
chapters can be created. We are creating.
yeah,
Now we've got a tremendous relationship with the Republican Liberty Caucus board, right? The
yeah,
board is a terrific group of people. Uh, a bunch of folks from my campaign left the Libertarian Party, joined the Republican Liberty Caucus, and we're running a project to start new chapters around the United States.
yeah,
And the board supports us, and we get data into the hands of leaders, political stalwarts in these
hmm,
respective states, and then they go about the process of creating new chapters. It's a
yeah.
tremendous amount of work. If I make this sound easy, I have
No, I
misspoken,
get.
right?
I know it is.
I know you do, but
Yeah,
it is the fastest, in my estimation, my guess is it's the fastest way to affect a policy debate that is coming at us with lightning speed.
yeah,
We've got years, not decades, to address these issues.
Yeah.
And I believe that the Democratic Party is likely too many years behind, but I don't know that with any certainty,
yeah,
number one. Number two, even if I'm right, and the debate that matters over the next 7 years is inside the Republican Party, if we survive those threats, which we may or may not, if we survive those threats, then we want the Democratic Party to be as healthy and as libertarian as
yeah.
possible. So that's why I would encourage you to pursue it.
Yeah, that's why I feel like we're kind of on the same boat in this. Is we're both like we'll disagree on economics or whatever, but we're kind of both see Libertarian Party, third parties kind of they're dead on water. So the best you can do is kind of change the minds of the people that are already have their minds changed by the party that they belong to. It's like if that's how they're going to make their opinions, then you need to change the party
I
itself.
agree.
And yeah,
And in the off chance that you and I are both wrong about the Libertarian Party,
yeah,
let's hope that they also become big and effective as
yeah.
rapidly as possible.
I don't see any harm of that, even if I'm disagree ideologically. I think that more people in the conversation, especially about freedom, it just changes the way that you talk about ideas. It changes the way you address policies. I think that that's why, more very importantly, I think like ranked choice voting, things like this, things that encourage like other voices other than left or right, Democrat, Republican. I'm a Democrat, but I think that having more conversation changes the message. And if you are having the same conversation with the same person for 50 years, you're not going to get very far, and you're not
Yep.
going to change
Yep.
any ideas. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why we're stuck. Is we haven't had any competition, anybody challenging these two perspectives. Which I don't think there's only two perspectives, but that's all the establishment, the party
Yeah,
leaders are
yeah,
willing
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
present to
No,
us.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So
No, good for you. Good for you. You
Yeah.
guys have been great tonight. Thank you so much
yeah,
for
Well, I
spending
appreciate
so
that,
much
Mike.
time with me.
Yeah, and Mike, I just want to thank you for coming on. I know we went way past our time, but the
That's all
conversation
right.
was great. Between Steph and Mike, that was awesome. Now, I can tell you this: there's some breaking news before I let you guys go. By the way, so apparently
sure.
DC has a new commissioner. Whoever's the head of the DEA is now the new police commissioner of DC.
Yep.
I don't know how that's possible, but we'll figure that out
Yeah.
in another show. But I want to thank you guys for imagining more and thanking for Micah coming on. Hey, there's so much to talk about. We hour can't do it. We're gonna have to break it down in series or parts. But I want to thank you guys once again for tuning in. Thanks, Mike, for taking his time to enlighten us again with his ideologies because it's so interesting. Because when you talk to libertarians, I've never found someone who's been able to explain it better than Mike. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
so
Very well articulated. I
very
appreciate it,
well,
Mike.
very well, and we thank you for that. And Seth, you got any final words? Mike, got any final words before we let go?
No, that's a wrap. Anyone that wants to get involved with the Republican Party, reach out to me, Mike at MikeTremont.com.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, Seth.
I don't want to take too much more time. I feel like we got a lot covered this episode, and it's a little bit because we haven't been here in 2 months, so we need to make it more regular so we can get these episodes, 1 hour
Break this
and
one
cut.
into two. This is a part one and a
Yeah,
part two.
There it
that's
is.
valid. But I am starting to segment and highlights and clips, and I feel like that works a lot better for viewership anyway. So
There you
that's what
go.
we're gonna do anyway. If you
Thanks,
want to watch the
guys.
whole episode, it'll be on Spotify and YouTube. Otherwise, I'm posting shorts. I'm posting shorter videos throughout the week, throughout the month. So
That's it, guys.
tune in.
Stay tuned. Imagine more. Have a
All
good
right,
day.
thank you guys.
Bye.